Hey everyone, I'm Grasse, and this is Podcast Mark, where I talk to business owners, my friends, experts, and other professionals about the intersection of personal life, business life, and professional life, and where it all comes together, which there's intersections at every single point. So it's been very fascinating, the series. Today I have another fascinating person, Keith Breseé, and we're going to be talking about some fatherhood stuff, some transitioning spaces, growing businesses, and where all comes together. So welcome to the show, Keith.
Yo, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. So, I mean, we already talked a whole bunch before we got on here, but I figured we
Just a
could kind of
little.
start with, we both have new spaces. And so I just left a studio that I've been in for probably like 7 years. And I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
okay. Well, and the funny thing is I was always planning on building a studio in my house because I have a big warehouse thing too, where I'm going to do like my stand-up studio. But I've had to build this like in a week because I needed to shoot a ton of episodes. And so
Yep.
it's been hectic. I know you're transitioning too, right? You're producing 100 videos in 100 days. Was that the goal?
Yeah, that's the goal. I'm trying to launch a new offer, and it's something I've done stuff like this for other people, plenty of other people, but never for myself. I'm a plumber with a leaky house, and so I'm just like, what's the fastest and easiest things that I can do that will compound over time
Mm.
to grow it? And uh, I was on a web. I was on, Noah Kagan, right?
Hmm. No, I don't know
Uh,
him personally, but
right. So he was my first mentor, and in fact, his new book is it's here on my desk. If you
huh.
recall what I was telling you about, um, and in his book, Million Dollar Weekend, and his original course, which is called Monthly 1K, which is what got me started on entrepreneurship. It was a video between uh, Tim Ferriss and Noah when he was talking about selling a toothbrush,
Hmm.
like way back. Anyway, he talks about uh, uh, growing your business, viewing your business as a fire, and this is just one mentality aspect. Um, but I had asked him, "How do you apply this when I'm trying to get uh, influencers to promote me?" You know,
Hmm.
in the world of SEO, I'm not a hot shot. I'm basically a nobody. But like hundreds of millions of people have seen my work without knowing it just
Wow.
because of the clients that I've worked with. And and I want to be able to, level up. I want to be able to say, "Hey, Tim Ferriss, promote my stuff." Not that that would happen, but
Yeah.
people of that caliber, and or at least right now anyway. And and so he's like, "No, you got to start really small." And so he's like, find people with 1,000 followers, get them to promote you, and you do back scratch sort of thing. And then next, maybe you work your way up to 5,000, then 10, 50, 100,000 followers, etc. And then you just start compounding. And so that was like such a beautiful analogy because I'm thinking like, okay, I want Noah and someone of his caliber to promote me and my offer, or when it makes sense. But I'm like, Noah and someone at his caliber is not just going to be like, yeah, I'm going to shoot you, a fat percent of this offer. So that makes sense why I'm going to promote it as the big influencer.
Hmm.
It doesn't line up.
Was a mark
So I
out.
got to line up, build my value that I bring to the table when engaging in those sorts of relationships, if that makes sense. I can't just hit up Brian Dice, but if I'm already at his level, like another Perry Belcher or whoever, and I say, "Hey Ryan, this offer makes sense. Let's go." It's full steam at that point, sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Oh man, I love that concept. Well, even the fire analogy, which sounds so simple, but it's like, man, that's exactly
Right.
what it is. Like, because it's a constant thing you gotta fuel. It doesn't just happen,
Yes.
you know?
Oh
And
yeah.
but the perception is that like, oh yeah, well, Mr. Beast came out with a video and it got 50 million views. It's like you're not even like on the same planet, you guys. Like, let's take a
Yeah.
big step back. And actually I talk about the same thing with branding because people are like, I want to be the next Nike. And it's like they had 100 years on you. Like even they didn't have the
Yeah.
$1 trillion. Like they have way too much time. And actually your point about the whole finding the right trades, because honestly, like the bigger brand people, the people who have established a brand and they have 100,000, a million followers or whatever it is, they can't do that because it would conflict
Yeah.
with their content flow to be like, and now I'm going to
Oh
promote
yeah.
somebody small. And it's like, wait, what's going on here? Like, I don't
That would
understand.
be awkward.
It would.
Yeah.
And so it's nothing offensive because I think that the negative way to take it is like, oh, well, that big jerk, like he's just like so big, he doesn't help the little guy kind
Yeah.
of thing. It's like, no, it's not about that. It's about brand consistency. And at that level, like your content has to be pretty set. Like you can't,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
You have to have an established brand or so. Like Seth Godin, he won't even get on a podcast. He won't even consider a podcast if you don't have 100 published episodes already.
Oh,
So something
that's a
like
good
that,
method. Yeah.
right?
You
And
know,
so coming back to the fire element, and we were talking about, like I had mentioned launching something. We're getting into our new flow of our new spaces and whatnot. Uh, uh, I hate to bring up Noah again. I mean, I say
hey, whatever.
I don't want to keep promoting him, but I've learned so much from him, and I just read his book twice in the last week,
Wow.
or once and then skimmed back and forth. You know how you read books,
Yeah.
and but he just got a domain 100. I think it's 100 days. I can't remember, but the whole idea is you do something for 100 days, and just see how that can change your life, your business, or
Mm.
whatever. 100 days of working out, 100 days of, intermittent fasting, or whatever it might be, 100 days of doing something for your loved one, your spouse, or whatever. You can totally flip everything upside down, or for the better.
Hmm.
So, in launching this whole thing, I'm just like, okay, I need to do this for 100 days. I want to put out, a video a day. I want to send two minimum detailed pitch emails a day for partnerships. And if I did that, just I can, because I've already got 12-ish people who have said yes, with a
Oh,
collective
nice.
audience much bigger than myself, 40, 50 times bigger than my personal reach as it stands. And that's just because I sent like a couple of emails,
Hmm.
literally. So like if I did that over and over every day, and then couple that with a video a day, whether it's 60 seconds or 10 minutes or whatever, put it on LinkedIn, X, and YouTube, you know, you know,
Oh
context
yeah. I mean,
relevance.
that's
You get the point.
multiplying
Um,
every time, you know.
yeah. So that's the whole idea behind it. And I've never stuck with any, what's the right way to phrase that? You know, I I've never done anything online consistently for 100 days in a row
Mm.
without missing a beat. Uh, in a and that task being something that would potentially meaningful, change my life. Because like
Oh yeah,
my
huge
first,
impact.
oh yeah, because like my first, um, my very so I've been doing SEO for what? This is 12 years age, a long
Oh,
time. And my first clients, Noah was actually one of my first clients. Before he didn't even have Sumo Me. He just showed sumo.com. And before that, it was Sumo Me.
mm.
And Sumo Me wasn't even an app, wasn't even a domain yet. And he had the app. So it was like way back.
Mm.
Um, and, I have all these smaller clients at the time. I'm not making a lot of money early on. And then I only did one deal. And within like 6 months, that one deal, because of the results and everybody in the Nashville area, because that person was a big deal in Nashville,
Yeah,
especially at the time. And, from there, I was able to, is it Gary Keller, The One Thing? Is that,
I think
is that
that
the
sounds right.
author of that book? Whoever wrote the book,
We'll
The
look it
One
up.
Thing. Yeah. The domino, a tiny little domino can push down a bigger domino and so forth. And, after like only 50 to 100 dominoes, you can have a tiny little domino push down something the size literally of the Empire State Building. And I dominoed that client success and relationship and totally changed my life. Because like the
Hmm.
year prior, in fact, I just posted this. This is partially why it's top of mind. I just posted this on X, and briefly my story. And, the year prior, so this is about 8, 9 years ago, give or take, eight, somewhere right in there. The year prior, so about 9, 10-ish years ago, I only made like $28,000. I was living at home with my mom,
Mm,
with my wife and two kids. So, my wife, God bless her soul, for supporting me all those years when I'm like, no, babe, I'm going to make this.
it's gonna happen.
I'm going to make it work. Uh, and then I signed that contract, and it was a $250,000 contract. And
Wow.
by the end of that year, because I signed it, in August, by the end of that year, I collected $96,000 in cash, or cash collected. And then, the next year is even more than that, obviously. Um, but all that came from me just shaking hands all the time.
Mm,
Like, and this comes back to bringing it back to the 100 days of consistency. Then I was shaking hands, going to coffee shops, meetups, constantly trying to network, literally shaking hands. And, I'm not in a geographical uh, place to be able to do that and grow like I want. And I can't travel like I want due to health, other stuff. We can go into that later. So I'm kind of like stuck here. And
mm.
so I can't grow the way I used to do. So now what can I do? And that comes back to uh, what's the book? I have it upstairs. Uh, Never Eat Alone. Keith Breseé talking about constantly pinging and or shaking hands, and then for people you've shaken hands in the past, re-pinging them just to keep that
Oh,
relationship
alive, really.
semi-fresh.
Huh.
Yeah, even if it's once a quarter. Um, and that book is worth its weight in. Can I cuss?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it's
That book is worth
pretty
its
open
weight
show.
in fucking gold. Dude, like, oh my God, Keith Breseé's Never Eat Alone book. And so when you just making connections, like I said, the 2 pitches a day and then posting a video a day, regardless of its length, if I can just do those two things, and this kind of segues into, or it makes sense to segue into like what we were talking about, the flow of things, maybe even.
Mm.
Um, just making it easier. Oh, this is where I was thinking. Uh, so Tim Ferriss's book, one of my, okay. Uh, I have a lot of man crushes, dude crushes, bro crushes.
Broke it. There you
Um, there you go. His book, 4 Hour Chef. So I love to cook. I love to cook. I just spent too much money on an espresso machine so I can,
go. Ooh.
you know, do the whole ritual at home, fully manual, all that. I love the experience of just making things. Um, Check out another book I read a lot. Adam Savage's book. Whatever his book's title, I never remember titles. Adam Savage, the Mythbuster.
Oh yeah.
He has a book on becoming a creator, and it's not a how to create or whatever. It's like more of a philosophy sort of book.
Oh, that's
Such a good
cool.
one. But Tim Ferriss's book, 4 Hour Chef, it's his books are fat, right? And dense, and kind of, and the first 100 pages of the book are how to learn something. And
Uh,
then the vehicle for learning a new something just so happens to be cooking. And he brings up, uh, and so his method is meta learning. Such a cool process. I use it pretty frequently
oh,
for getting myself immersing myself into something new. Uh, but he talks about if you want to learn to cook, you have to first plan, you have to go shopping, you have to prep it, you have to cook it, then you have to clean it. All of which, and I hate cleaning, hate cleaning, all of which are pains in the ass. Now I can say, hey, Chat GPT, give me some recipes.
here's
Like I
what
was
we
at the
got.
store. Yeah, I want to do this, whatever, and give me some recipes. I'm like, okay, give me an itemized recipe list while I'm at the store. That was more convenient. Great. So then I go shop, and I come home and I prep it, and then cooking it and cleaning it. The whole process, especially prepping, cleaning, and cooking, prepping, cooking, and cleaning, for some meals can take a long time.
Oh yeah.
And it's not easy at all. And so coming back to the 100 days of, it's going to bug me. Noah has a specific name for it, doing something for 100 days. Uh, uh, staying. I have a dad bod, so and I've started working out. Who knows how many times? Who hasn't? That's just an excuse to make me feel better about not continuing it.
No, that's
Right?
it's it. Oh, we could talk about fitness all day long.
Oh
I
yeah,
but no, well, the
but
100 days are just huge. Well, and I'll tell you why, because I was thinking about it as you were talking, I was like, oh, why is that
yeah,
work? Because I hear it all the time. It worked for me. It's how I actually built and sold my first company, was because I didn't even care about any research at all. I was just like, every day we put up one video, every week we put out one press release, and then I just had these things that we did, and then the thing grew itself. And I think the reason why we don't all subscribe to that is because I'll call it the magic trick disappointment, where it's like, if you see magic tricks and you're just like, oh man, that was so cool, like how did he do that, where'd the ball go? And then if you have anybody explain the trick to you, they're like, oh yeah, it turns out he has a piece of tape behind his hand and it's just stuck to the back of his hand,
yeah,
you didn't see it. And you're like, oh man, that's so disappointing. Like, I wanted something magic, I wanted something that was like
yeah,
so out there that I couldn't predict it, but it worked. And you being disappointed because the solution was actually kind of boring and simple didn't make it work less. And so that's the
mhm,
100 day. That's what you get with the 100 days. It's just about the habit. It's just about the doing. And even for this podcast,
totally.
I'm making a whole series just about me, reviving my podcast, because this podcast has actually been around for like 5 or 6 years, but I just was on and
Oh
off
sweet.
the whole time. And then over like that last week and this week, I'll probably do about 25 episodes, like over just 2 weeks.
Oh damn.
And
Yeah, you
and
mentioned like the other day you did like what 12 in a day or something
no, I
or
did
something.
14 last week, but I did like five or
Oh,
six
14 in a
in one
week.
day.
That's right.
But what you'll actually see, and if you listen to all the episodes once they're out, you'll actually hear how the show starts to evolve over that time, to where now I have a slogan, I have a purpose, I have all the things that you're supposed to build before you do
Yeah,
anything. And I just did it and it evolved itself. And now I feel great about it. And everybody's like totally on board. So no, that's
yeah.
I totally believe in the 100 days. That's incredible. Too
Well,
simple.
so for oh yeah, because like I'm well back to working out. There's I don't remember where I heard this, probably from a dentist or I don't know, doesn't matter. But but for me working out and staying in shape, because I'm 34 and I've had a heart attack. I've had
Oh,
major I was in the hospital. What is this? 3 months ago I was in the hospital, major liver issues, you know, hardcore addressing that right now. But so health is, top of mind.
uh,
And and I'm 5'10", and I was just under 200 this time last year, especially. But now I'm like 180, 85. But I still have, I can have some
yeah.
flab, but I can see my whatever the abs are on the side of like the outskirts. The
Oh,
point is I'm losing
obliques
weight.
and the
Obliques.
V,
Yeah.
the
Yes.
Adonis belt.
Yes. So I'm starting to see that, right? And I'm not getting fast results. Like I'm not getting into my beach bod in like a month or three or whatever. But I am losing weight. I'm getting more fit. I'm increasing my cardio. And it all started with flossing one tooth.
Huh.
You go through the whole routine, get out your floss, pull it out, wrap it around your fingers. You start to floss. It's never was like, okay, I'm already here. I might as well fucking do the rest,
Yeah.
sort of thing. And so my flossing one tooth, like I'm trying to get to where I can just floss one tooth. And so for fitness and health, I did Kung Fu way back when I
Mm.
was a teenager. I did it for 4 or 5 years,
Oh.
long fists or Northern Shaolin, and fucking loved it. I love martial arts. I love Kung Fu, especially. So many things I could talk about with that.
I love
And
that
so
too.
there's a local, right? And so there's a local place here that it's a very destructive. It's a not destructive. It's uh there's a bunch of styles of kung fu, and it's a derivative, an
Okay.
Americanized version of Choi Lei Foot, which
Hmm.
Choi Lei Foot is the only martial art that Bruce Lee ever said that he's like that's gonna be the hardest to defend against and the hardest to attack against because
Uh,
it's very uh it's like
Loaded.
swinging a bat
Hmm.
when you're making an attack. That's beside the point. I'm getting off.
No, I love
And
hearing about
so
that.
but back to the flossing one tooth. I'm like, I want to get in shape. I want that dad bod. I want that, you know, Chris Hemsworth physique sort of thing, but I don't have the time. I don't have the, these are just excuses. I know I don't have the time. I don't have the mental wherewithal right now to focus on it. But I like kung fu,
Yeah.
so I'm going to go to kung fu 1 to 3 times a week. I'm going to work on a bag, get my cardio up. I'm going to sweat like an I sweat. I'm going to soak my shirts, and then I'm going to do all my routines, my practice. I'm going to spar, and in doing that, in the last year, I've a lot of aspects of my health have dramatically increased outside of my liver crap. But that's a totally separate thing. I used to my diet growing up was not good.
Oh,
Anyway, um,
I could talk about that too.
any, right? And so point is just trying to floss one too. So how can I apply that? And now I'm working, and now that I've been doing kung fu for another almost 2 years now, through this stint, um, I have a bag at home. I have kettlebells at home, and I use them regularly because, like, I intentionally started kung fu knowing that I'm flossing one tooth
Mm.
and that it would evolve. So now I'm like, kind of like with this whole thing in here, and back to Tim Ferriss's meta learning approach. He's like, you deconstruct something into its moving pieces. It's DISSS, if I can remember the full acronym. The I is there just to remember. D is for deconstruct. I is there just to give it an acronym to remember. Sequencing, what's the order of things you need to do things? What's the sequencing selection of that thing, of the moving pieces that you've deconstructed that are moving to go from A to B? What's the 80-20? And then stakes. How do you implement stakes to that way? Oh, something bad's going to happen if I don't go from A to B.
Yeah.
And that's the core of the method. And so
I
now
like that.
applying that to the flow back to the office thing, how can I want to upload daily, editing, setting up, like I told you earlier, setting up took me forever and I had to move. Now I'm almost there to where I can just 5 minutes and go from my seat or
That's
stand
awesome.
up. So like, how can I remove all those extra moving pieces and just get to the core 20% that will yield the big results? Same with editing, copy paste an intro, outro, forget everything else in between, just do raw, just go, maybe
Yeah.
color correct, whatever, just something simple. That way I can just hit that mark of 0 to 100 days of whatever, um, as efficient and easily as possible.
I love
So
that. No, because really what you're talking about is convenience. If something is convenient, you're more likely to do it way more often.
oh yeah.
Well, and then you also identified a passion of yours that you probably denied yourself forever for some stupid reason.
We have an amazing limited time offer that you won't want to miss. Introducing the Build Your Brand Pillars course from AI Branding Academy, your gateway to mastering both traditional branding and AI-powered marketing strategies. With this course, you'll gain invaluable skills in creating strong brand foundations that stand out in today's competitive market. Perfect for innovation leaders like you. Don't wait. Take advantage of this special offer before it's gone. Head to aibranding.academy.
No, but what I was saying about the identifying your passion, because I had the exact same
Yeah.
situation where it's like I've always wanted to learn how to draw better. Like I consider myself a graphic designer, but never really an
Uh,
artist. But for me, like I personally rejected art because I was like, you know what, art's for casual times and it's for, things that I haven't achieved yet. Like I don't deserve to even indulge in my own interest because it's not profitable for me to do that. And so I had to break through that barrier where I'm like, no, I love art. I've always loved art. My grandfather
yeah.
was a painter, and we used to go to his art shows all the time. I have a foundation of art in my family, and so, but I had always denied myself because it wasn't profitable. But as soon as I realized, I'm like, I don't have to be good at art or drawing to start. Like, who cares? I'm not going to show this to anybody. Like, so what I started doing was I started doing neurographic doodling, or neurographic drawing is what it's called, where basically I have a piece of paper, I take a rock and I use a pencil and I just push the rock around. I let it flow wherever it goes. And then as soon as that's done, I use a Sharpie to fill in the lines and I make them flow together. and that's where it started. And then now I'm getting into face shapes, and it's developing. And now I have hundreds of these drawings, which I sign, and I actually put the type of rock I used and where it was from, which led to me collecting rocks when I go on vacation. Because I'm like, oh, whenever I look at this rock, actually, I could show you again. So I have this little chest of rocks where I could be like, oh, this one I got in a hike in Big Bear with my sister and my son and a few other people. This one I got in Laguna Beach when I took a walk with my father-in-law down on a dangerous coast that we weren't supposed to be in, into a neighborhood that was closed off and we couldn't get out of. And so it's
I
funny
can
because
relate to that.
yeah, well, and you start to, the one thing that you're doing that you kind of denied yourself was actually restricting all these other experiences and interests that you could have had. Plus, you don't have to do very much. Like we overcomplicate the whole thing, and then we don't do it because, oh, it's too much work. And it's like, yeah, because you made it that way, jerk. Just don't do that. So
Right.
I love that, the 100 days, and also, finding your passion, rediscovering the passion that you have, that you're good at, and you have a foundation of. So just go for it. So that's
Yeah.
a great lesson.
Yeah. Because I have two thoughts. One is a deeper, but I'm going to just say the faster one real quick. Totally mostly off topic. It's coming back to your rocks. So I relate. Um, Let me just, so this is uh basically space glass. It's moldavite. It was, they say it was a meteor that came, you know, hundreds of millions or whatever years ago, crashed and melted as it was coming into Earth's atmosphere, and
That's
uh,
awesome.
came out like this. I don't know if you can see it.
It's
And
visceral.
then this is Lebanon desert glass, and it was sand and meteorite that fused together from Lebanon, from a specific meteor. And then I can't tell you their names, two different little meteorites or
Oh, that's
pieces of
cool.
them.
It's
I
like
know,
pyrite.
right? It looks like it. It's honestly like 90 something percent iron. So
Huh.
it's like highly
That's funny.
magnetic, just molten. But then I can't remember the name of this, but if you just Google any meteorite ring, you can't probably see it. My kids say that it
Oh, that's
looks like
cool.
bubblegum wrapper,
Oh
but it
yeah.
has a checkered pattern to it,
Oh yeah. It almost looks like writing.
and it's yeah. If you did, like I said, if you just look up any meteorite ring, you'll see the type of meteorite it looks like in the actual pattern and detail.
Mm.
It's super cool, but like
Oh, super
they
thin.
cut it out, and like this little thing was like I paid way too much for that. That's why it's small.
Worth it.
It is. It's like I like space. I love sci-fi, and so just like this rock was from space or
That's
whatever.
awesome. Well, you said every rock's from space. But that's
We
more
are in
recently.
space. Right, right. Yes, that's
No,
funny.
that's fantastic. But I think, identifying those interests and then relate, and this is kind of the point of the show, is like, hey, all these interests are not unique to some specific aspect of your life. It's just life. And if you just treat it like that, then you could get benefits in a whole bunch of different areas just from doing something that you enjoy
Oh
doing,
yeah.
and has some kind of benefit or objective that you're trying to achieve. So I love how you got back into martial arts too, because it's, I hate working out. Even though I've ridden multiple fitness certifications, and I was the head of fitness for an organization, and I did marketing for fitness for years. I had a gym. I work with a ton of martial artists and MMA fighters, because we had like a
Mm,
functional training. We called it unconventional training, which was a coin I term to basically describe all these weird methods that look like madness, but actually have a very specific method to them. And so that's kettlebells and maces and Indian clubs and sandbags and a whole bunch of stuff. And so yeah, no, I get it. And it's it could be as fun as you want it to be. And
Oh
honestly,
yeah.
but like if you going back to the original thing, our discussion about why you need a studio and why it should be ready to go whenever you're ready to go,
Right.
is because it's almost like it gives you a reason for excuses. Like, oh, I could do that 100 days, but my space is a pain in the butt to set up, and it's just so much time, and I just can't spend
Well,
time.
that is I I go to not just counseling for the other things that we had mentioned earlier, but or prior to this,
Hmm.
but like I go probably at least once a month just for myself. Just I'm not perfect, you know. It's actually a really cool method. It's called the adult chair.
Hmm.
Um, uh, and the whole idea is, finding oh, I have this problem. I'm triggered from X, Y, and Z. And where is that coming from, especially if it's a reoccurring thing?
Hmm.
And then they'll walk you through, oh, that event happened when I was 6. And when I'm triggered from
Ah,
this, it's not actually the adult Keith, it's the 6-year-old Keith that's responding to said trigger. And then, healing that 6-year-old Keith and trying to, move past that. That way I can always show up in any situation as the adult Keith, more sensible or in whatever. Anyway, so it's super cool. I could talk about that for a minute. I've been doing it for years, but probably like 10 years. And I'm still not perfect. Damn it.
yeah, you still get. It's funny that the triggering. I always refer back to Carl Jung's shadow work, and so I did the shadow work
Yeah.
journal, and it's the same
Yep.
thing. But I like how you describe it as it's like the child version of me is responding. But being able to
Yeah.
identify that is a huge achievement, because a lot of times
Yeah.
we're reacting to things, and you're like, well, before I kind of read that book, I was like, oh, some things just make me mad. It's just who I am. And then now I'm like, oh, why did that make me mad? Like, I shouldn't be mad. What the hell's going
Hmm.
on? And then through meditation, and I go into the kind of like I think of a concept that's a problem, and then because I've meditated so much now, I could dive through past memories and be like, why? Like, what does this word mean based on my memories? And then I look up a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, oh, that's stupid. My sister pushed me on the ground when I was that age, and now I'm upset because that reminds me of that. And you're like,
Yep.
that's so dumb. I mean, but it's how our personalities are built. So it's not like you could prevent it,
Yeah.
unless you do the work like you did to understand it, and then say, I'm going to choose as a adult, a capable thinking individual, to identify the situation for what it is currently to me in the present moment. Now you could solve some problems. And now you realize that a lot of your problems weren't actually problems, and were just stupid misconceptions that you made up in your
Accurate.
head.
But I want to come back to that real quick. But shit, I just had it because it's been in the back of my mind because I wanted to come back to
Oh,
it.
I screwed it all up. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Uh, uh, oh, excuses. In going to counseling, I have seen, over the last handful of years how many, like my son he'll be 13 in less than a month, like I mentioned, and he's full of excuses. All kids are. I don't want to clean the dishes because of X, Y, and Z reason. And I'm like, dude, can it with the excuses. And I brought this up in a session with my counselor, I don't know, sometime in the last 6 months. And she was like, do you give excuses? Because the kids are just modeling you. I'm like, I don't think I do. And we're walking through. I'm just like, wow,
I
a
totally
lot more
have.
excuses than I realized. But so, like, back to the convenience and excuse element real quick. This, I've had this office 8, 9 months, something like that. And the whole idea was I need somewhere that the kids, because my youngest will be 5 next month, unlocks my door when I'm on client calls or something like this, and comes in, and he's 5 or
Yeah.
4, and so he's gonna be a kid. Okay, whatever. Like that interview where there's viral videos of this dad being in a interview with like CNN or Fox or someone big, and in the background his wife is like fighting with the toddler trying to get him out, and it's really loud, and it's hilarious. Luckily that hasn't happened, But so I've been in here in this, it's an apartment that I'm renting. It's big. And I picked this one with the high vaulted ceilings with the intention of, oh, I'm going to turn this into a studio and do YouTube because I've dreamt about doing. I'm a people person. I hate sitting. I fucking hate sitting in offices all day long. I could talk. I've talked in front of thousands of people at one time, 4, 5, 6,000 people. You know, it's not small, but it's not huge.
Oh,
Not
it's pretty big.
Grant Cardone, 50 billion people huge or whatever. Um, but I'm a people person. I love talking, and I'm like, I'm going to do YouTube. I'm going to start getting into this. I'm going to put myself out there, and it's really hard. I wanted to do YouTube or become a social media influencer. Not I. That's not accurate. Uh,
Got a big
I
network.
wanted to put my yeah. I wanted to put myself out there in numerous ways, largely in the form of video. Um, and I just am full of excuses. So if anyone watching this right now, if they look me up and they see that I haven't started, then they know I'm full of shit.
You have like a
But
week. You have like 2 weeks.
okay, good. I'll be set up before then. My goal is to have this done by this week.
There
I
you
have art. I literally have a little table here with paintings, my guitar and stuff. I'm going to put back here, LED lights, shit.
go. Love it.
And so I've been here for what, 8, 9 months, and I've had my light for a minute, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6 months. And why haven't I done it? And then coming back to your convenience as an excuse element, I realized that, I don't know, a couple weeks ago is not long. Like this is fresh in my mind. I'm like, oh, I have all this friction from going A to B. I need to remove the friction. Back to the cooking. I have to plan, prep, shop, cook, clean. You know, I need to remove all of those. That way I can just clean. Ugh, that's what I want to do. So I can just cook. I just want to produce videos. If I can automate it and streamline all of it, and remove all the things I'm giving myself excuses, because they were accurate. Yes, it takes forever to just do one video with my current setup a week ago, but still at the end of the day, it is still an excuse because I could, if I really wanted to, find the time, but I just didn't because
Yeah.
it was an excuse.
But you're owning up to it, and I think that's the biggest thing. And actually, you just helped me realize like kind of why, because I schedule all these podcasts, right? I have like 25 podcasts in 2 weeks, and I'm like, man, why did I do that? This is really really difficult to do. And then I realized that I had the exact same content problem where I know how to edit. I've literally been making videos since I was probably like 7. I always had access to a computer and cameras and all this stuff, and I used to create content as a kid, even before anything was a thing for most people. And then I'm like, man, why did I never do that on social? Like, why don't I have a significant following? And what I realize now is that I was scared. What if this thing that I thought I was really good at, I'm actually not good at, and then I have the full evidence of that failure if I post it all up. Now, what's probably going to happen is I'll post a bunch of stuff and it'll go well, just as well as you'd expect consistent good work to improve. But the podcast and my solution was literally, I realized that I show up when people depend on me, and it's not specifically for me. I have a very, my self-worth is always been an issue. So I was like, if I just like, I'll leave the schedule open. If people come on the schedule, I'll show up, I'll do the podcast, and I'll have a few podcasts to, publish, and then I'll get my content engine up. And now I'm like, oh my God, everybody took every single slot I left open. Like, this is incredible. Everybody's showing up. And now I have the confidence. And now I'm going to have 25 new episodes of a podcast that I probably have 25 episodes total right now. And so I'm doubling the podcast in a couple of weeks. And I made it happen because other people depended on me. Now, I think the next level for me is to realize, like, no, the content is valuable because I made it, period. Like, that's why it's valuable. And that's it. I don't need to worry about anything outside of that. Other people find value in it, great. But I did it for me, and I think it's valuable. So you could find it valuable too. Either way, I'm going to make it. So no, well, thank you for those notes, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing this. There's a reason. There's always a reason.
Couple thoughts to that. So I John Lee Dumas, I had talked to him years ago, and about this one element. I can't remember the context of our conversation, but he had mentioned how he, at least early on, scheduled all of his podcasts or interviews for Tuesdays to record them, and he would just pack it all day. And uh, and somehow we had talked, and my call landed on that day, and he's like, "Yeah, I have a harsh stop because like 2 minutes after that, I'm getting on another Zoom," and it was just like, I made a mistake early on. I'm just, something. He made some form of packing it all into one was a mistake, and I can relate because all my client calls are on uh, Thursdays right now. So from Thursday from 10 to 4, it's back to back to back to back calls. Some of them are like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Some of them are, my longest is like 45 minutes, but it never goes on. Anyway,
Yeah.
you had mentioned, and I have my pen. So my therapist or counselor or whatever, the lady who came up with the adult chair, her name is Michelle Chalfant. She now teaches it and helps other coaches, therapists do that method. I didn't hang up this time. And so I used to have hardcore anger, like not just anger, like epic rage. My best friend to this day, our parents dated, so we've known each other our entire lives. And when I was 12 or 13, he did something to me. He accidentally ran into me. He turned and hit me with a church hymnal because we were in chapel. And I was like, my rage just went off, and I nailed him in the groin. Like, just like, I floored him. And I feel bad. And we joke about it now, but at the moment, and he's 3 years older than me. So I was 12, 13. So he's 15, 16. He felt it. I guess in the 50 years of our church school, what I grew up in, I was the only kid to ever get suspended. And I got suspended 3 times. I was such yeah. Anyway, so rage was a thing. And way back 10 years ago when I started going to counseling for just different things, anger and triggering has always been a conversation. And I always think of this, and I carry this pen specifically for 2 reasons. One, it's really strong. And if I ever needed to, I could, fight with it. If I don't have a knife or something else. But in addition, she pulled it out and she was like, "Keith, hold off this pen." So you get triggered and your anger or whatever negative emotion comes out. And as that negative emotion happens, as that negative emotion arises, whatever it might be, like, oh, I feel bad about myself because you talked about my weight. Oh, there's the bad feeling. I inherently want to, I don't like this bad feeling, so I'm going to take it and cover it up. And as I take it and cover it up and put it behind me, as humans, we organically want to replace it with something, and that usually is anger and rage or something like that. It can come out as something else, but it's the concealing of the bad thing that I don't like in many cases, and you can't just have nothing there, so you replace it with anger. I'm holding my fist out like as I'm going to fight something because I'm angry. And so she was like, well, let's look at the facts here. Why is this causing you to feel bad because I'm fat or whatever it might be? It doesn't matter. I'm just picking on that because we were talking about weight earlier and my dad bod. But she was like, well, what if you just hold it out there and you just acknowledge it and point out the fact, oh, I'm 15, 20, 30 pounds overweight, whatever. And instead of trying to conceal it and replace it, why don't you just acknowledge it, own it, and accept it? What's her name? I think it's Radical Acceptance. I think it's Brene Brown, who wrote it. Someone wrote the book Radical Acceptance. Fucking good book. And like, just accept the fact that, I'm fat or whatever the excuse is. Yeah, there it is. And just acknowledge it. You just, okay, put it away. I'm going to get back to my day. Yeah, I really don't like it, but I'm just accepting it. Okay, whatever. And because of that negative response, that trigger, the trigger still happens, but the negative response doesn't happen.
It's not necessary.
Right. uh,
No, that's a great technique. I
Jack,
like that one.
yeah, Jack Canfield, off Chicken Soup for the Soul Success Principle. That dude, he in his book Success Principles, he has a little formula that stuck with me forever. E plus R equals O. Event plus response, my response equals outcome. So I could have a bad event and a bad response. I'm going to get bad outcome. Bad event plus good response equals good outcome. And so regardless of the event, it's the my response that dictates what type of outcome I get. And bad event because I'm triggered and I don't like it. And so it's then my response. I can either respond with anger and something bad, or I can respond by, yeah, that
Yeah, that's the
sucks, and
thing. Yeah,
accepting it.
whatever.
Right.
No,
So I
it's such a
go ahead.
simple technique, but it's super powerful because it's really hard to describe the whole abstract concept of acknowledging your emotions, where you're like, okay,
Yeah.
what am I feeling right now? Instead of like instantly reacting, which is, what you described with getting angry. It's like, no, you just have to acknowledge it and say, yep, that's a thing. And my whole thing, because I've always been around fitness, I'm like, if it bothers you enough, you'll do something about it. But instead of doing something about it, you're having that negative reaction. You're just like, oh no, this is me doing something about it, getting upset. That's what I'm doing for it. It's like, no,
Yeah.
just
I,
push-ups or
I,
something.
I've had that sort of, I've had that realization in the past where I'm like, oh, I don't like how my liver feels or my gut or how I look when I'm standing naked in front of a mirror. And I have that negative response and I react. And that, to a certain degree, that dopamine hit happens when I react. And
Mm.
so now when I'm thinking about it later and I'm not triggered, I'm just in a sound mind thinking about it. I am not, I already got the dopamine hit from it. And I'm just going to go on about my day and not actually resolve what I didn't like in the first place.
Mm. Yeah, no, and that's well, and it's always anger because for me, like I always talk about my IBS journey where I was basically I was nauseous and bloated and uncomfortable for essentially 25 years
Yeah.
because I have
Ugh.
massive
Yeah.
food allergies that I just never knew about. But instead of getting angry about it or anything, I just said, this is just normal life. I'm just going to continue like this is normal. And that was a bad reaction too, because I should have said like, hey, why am I constantly uncomfortable? And I should do something about this.
Right.
And so that's a different kind of suppression where I'm like, and I think my way was worse because at least you could see the anger and other people can see the anger. And so now you're more likely to change it just because it's so obvious. But for me, it was like, I'm just going to treat this like it's not a problem. It was a problem. But I treated it like it wasn't. And so it just continued for a quarter century. And now I'm awake. So I think you're
And
doing
that,
great. I mean, you got some real cool realizations. You're doing something about it. And the therapy helps, and I always try to make everybody know that if you have any kind of problem, like literally anything, like you can go to a therapist about that. Like it's okay.
and just talk about it. Yeah.
And talk about it.
And for me, the beautiful thing is, for my situation, loving martial arts and kung fu and whatnot, I have a bag. I have a 150-pound bag. It's too heavy. I now have a 150 and 120-pound bag.
150. I have
Um,
100.
yeah, yeah, and it's cushioned, and it was still a beast. I don't, I just wrap my hands. I don't have gloves.
Oh, okay.
I want to compress my hands. I want to be able to hit someone if
Yeah.
needed and not hurt as little as possible. Anyway, but like when I'm angry or frustrated, oh, I need to do something with this. That way I don't internalize it and have more gut issues because I didn't do something with my feelings. They say anger suppressed causes liver problems. Don't know if that's
Ah,
true or not, but
I can
if
see
it
that.
is, I don't know. I have liver problems, had anger, much worse anger issues. Anyway, I can go out to my garage and just wail on it, you know.
Yeah, I
Uh,
mean, well, and that's a form of
so just
acknowledgement too. So,
yeah,
man,
for
I think we have
sure.
tons to talk about. So I think we'll definitely have to have you back on. We'll get into the, fatherhood stuff, which is usually where I end up. But I really like your fitness journey and the fact that you have a background in, athletics, kung fu, and martial arts, and it's easy to get out of that too. Cause I think, you know, a lot of us, we get older, you have kids, and that's like, all right, it's up to me now. And I could have nothing for myself because that's selfish. And it's like, no, it's unproductive is what it is.
Well, well, and then yeah, and then coming back to your point of you said something earlier in our call, maybe before the call, about when we're talking about excuses. I think like I can say I don't have the time, and you know, going to kung fu 3 times a week at 4 to 6 or 4 to 7 or Saturday morning. That's when you have 3 kids. You know, that's hard. But at the end of the day, I really like Alex Becker. He posts a picture every morning of him, you know, fist pumping the camera, like at 3 or 4 a.m. of him waking up. You know, granted, that could be, you know, taking 50 shots in different shirts and, you know, scheduling those,
Yeah.
whatever. But point is, like, if I don't get out the door by 8:30, I'm gonna not get started by 10 o'clock getting my office. So like if I really wanted to see more fitness or more martial arts or whatever results, I can get up at 5, leave the house by 5:30, 45, or whatever, be at the office by 6 working. And all of a sudden I just added 3, 4, 5 hours to my working day. And it just required a little bit more effort. I know.
And then times 5, you could take the weekend off and you're still at 25 extra hours of work. And it's like when you start to do, that's why everybody always poo-poos the whole like, oh, get up early, like some kind of biohacking jerk. And it's like, no, it's just more time. Like you wonder why some of these people are like insanely productive and they're chilling in the afternoon. It's because they've been killing it since like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, this is the day's over. They already did a work day and you're just barely getting started. So anyway, we'll talk about that too, but we'll have you on soon or back because I think we got lots of topics. Where can people learn more about you in the meantime?
Yeah. So I have an SEO agency where we do strictly SEO and organic growth sort of shenanigans, and that is the trafficdojo.com.
Nice. I like that.
Yep.
Cool name. Relates to the passion. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Keith. Really appreciate your time. We'll have you back on soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, Mark.
All right. And thank you so much for listening. This has been Podcast Mark, where we talk about a bunch of random stuff that usually comes back to personal development and philosophy. So if you like that, tune back in because we do it a whole lot more.